Hello, Emma. It's so
Hi,
nice
how
to
are
have
you?
you. It's so
I'm
nice to have you on the podcast. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here.
You're
Um,
welcome.
so, so could you tell us a little bit about yourself, as just an introduction for those who might not be as familiar with your content?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Emma from Emma's Yoga Tribe, and I've been a yoga teacher for about 4 to 5 years now. And I'm a mum first and foremost, so have a pretty busy family life. I have 3 children, and I moved around quite a bit when my children were younger. So when I had my third child, we moved to Scotland, and it was quite a big transition for me and the whole family. And then that's when being in a new place and stuff like that, that I'd never lived away from where I grew up really. Having had a baby, moving into a new place, um, I used to get a lot of anxiety. And that's when I kind of discovered yoga. I mean, I'd done it before when I was younger, but I never really got into it until I'd say I did pregnancy yoga, but it was afterwards that I really got into it consistently. Um, so yeah, so I had a bit of a lonely time at first, after you have a baby. So I was looking for something to make friends, and then another mum I met was a Ashtanga teacher, and we sort of formed a little group where we used to meet once a week, and that was kind of like my go-to time when outside of the family life, we'd actually have some time to myself. So yeah, so that was kind of how I came to it, and also because I was just kind of a bit lost in myself back then, not knowing where I was going with stuff. It was just kind of like the thing that was all encompassing, because it's not only a physical practice, as you know, it's massively can be spiritual for people, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of mindset stuff involved,
Mhm.
and it's all about to do with yourself. So, and I was still on my path of self-discovery. You never stop learning. So I found it to be really grounding and nurturing, really. So then kind of as my children grew a bit older, I decided that I would go into teaching children's yoga, because I have a background in education. So I thought I'll go back to teaching children's yoga, and started up some classes in Scotland, which was interesting. But not long after we moved to Leeds, so then I kind of like had another change again, had to settle in a new place, and because I really wanted to get back into my own physical wellness and fitness, once sort of my youngest had started school, I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? And then I started really dedicating a lot of time to my fitness then, and then I had more time to think about what I wanted to do. So then someone said to me, oh, why don't you do the teacher training? So then I kind of was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. And then eventually I was like, yeah, why not do it? Because I had the interest there already. So it made sense to start that. So yeah, so then I just took my teacher training, and and then it kind of went from there. And I've always been sort of into physical fitness anyway, and sports when I was younger. But I never really appreciated sort of yoga and just what yoga meant,
Yeah.
really. I thought it was just sitting and doing gentle stretches. But it's so much more than that, as you know.
Yeah.
So then I took my training, and then I kind of just started teaching gradually in local communities, village halls, and then studios. I did a lot of cover work, and then I kind of got into teaching in offices and corporate environments, and then I kind of found a different niche there, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, like what you were saying into what I find really inspiring talking to you and a lot of people who are also in this wellness space is that often how they got about to get into that space is because they were dealing with some sort of like anxiety or some sort of like problem that could sort of be fixed with, or at least like, you know, healed in a way through physical movement or like breathing or yoga practice.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because the reason I'm very heavily into my health and wellness is because I suffered from really bad social anxiety at university, and I used to really suffer from like panic attacks as well. So after a lecture, if I just felt really panicky for no reason, sometimes I'd just have a panic attack and I'd be like drenched in sweat, and it would really just ruin the rest of the day, just write it off for me. And I just had to deal with that for a long time. And then I found running, I found weight training, I found yoga, and that is the thing that helped me like sort of dedicate my time to that. So it is really interesting to hear a lot of people and their stories, because that sort of seems to be like there's like one moment in time they're like, oh yeah, this is the thing that I need to do to help me with my own like wellness and to keep me sort of afloat. But your journey is so interesting, just because like I know you mentioned something around you never really moved away from home and you got that sort of anxiety around that. I felt that when I finished university. So I stayed at home in Sheffield all throughout university, in my parents' house. I didn't move out until I got my first job. I moved to Leeds, as you know, and that's where we met. But I moved to Leeds, and that first 6 months to 12 months, it was really tough for me, and I was getting I was starting to experience anxiety and the panic attacks, and I just felt really depressed as well, being away from home. But then every time I went to the gym or I actually practiced hot yoga at one point, that really helped me so much, and now I feel like a lot more mentally resilient, if that makes sense. So yeah, like it's really nice and it's really relatable from your story. And so yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. My next sort of question is, like, when did you first identify the need for improving like the health of people that work in an office? Because you mentioned that you sort of found your niche there. I know that for those that listened to the section earlier, we actually first met through that corporate environment, and I remember being super excited to like get involved, and I got a load of the other colleagues, of the people I worked with, to go to your class, because I was so excited that it was happening in the office. But yeah, when did you first like identify that, and like what sort of classes have you done for office workers?
So I guess that was that 2018, 19?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
it's like a long time ago now.
It does.
Yeah, with everything that's happened in the last year. Yeah, so I think back then I just had a friend who worked at EE, and he was a runner. So he was chatting to me, saying, about a lot of mobility issues, with running and stuff like that, and that he didn't have the time to fit in yoga, say like after work, or go to an outside class and stuff like that, and how great it would be if they could implement that into their wellness kind of package. So yeah, so it kind of just came about organically, really, and then I guess I started really getting to know people's bodies. The more you teach, obviously in person, it's all very well doing the training, but you don't really get your experience, or you really get out there. I guess it's like any job, you learn through people, all the time, and their bodies and how they move, and also like emotionally, like stuff they've got going on. And then I identified that sort of a lot of office workers naturally sit at desks, and just have really poor posture, and tend to have a lot of tightness in rounding of the shoulders, and everyone these days that kind of sits at desks or for the majority of the day, they're not even really getting up and moving at all, or they're not even moving their shoulders or their neck or their head or their eyes. Even eye mobility is a thing, because we just sort of fix ourselves straight at the screen. So I kind of saw that a lot of guys, especially as well, were really feeling the benefits of doing a lunchtime yoga session, because I think they just like the fact, you know, they can get up from their desk, go and do some yoga, go and do some movement is what they really needed in the day. Yeah, just have a really good stretch out. But you know, obviously there are a lot of issues going on these days because people are just sitting or driving, or were driving to work in their cars. You know, it's the same movement pattern all the time. Or maybe if you're into the same kind of sport all the time, like running, cycling, certain things, you know, you do need to mix it up a bit. And I've learned that as well. So, you know, and people do just hold a lot of tension in their bodies, you know, without even realizing, you know, even myself, sometimes it just comes out in a different way sometimes. So I think especially guys that maybe feel as well a bit more kind of like nervous to come to a public class because they know kind of 90% of the participants are going to be women. I don't know why that puts them off, but it does. So, you know, I can understand that. But I think they just felt quite comfortable doing it amongst sort of like their colleagues, you know, in a familiar environment. And it, you know, and it doesn't matter that it's not a perfect environment or anything. You just, you know, we used to shove the tables out the way, didn't we? And move all the meeting room stuff out the way. And yeah, just a really good place to just start and get moving. But yeah, I think like mobility is definitely a thing that's lacking in a lot of people's bodies right now in this modern age. So yeah, so I think it gives like everybody, but especially males, a good opportunity to just release from the working day, from the morning, you know, even if it's an after work yoga. And also yoga, as you know, it's not just about you know, the physical movement. There's so much more involved and so much you learn off of the mat as well. So as you said before, like you build resilience, and you might be going through a lot of emotional stuff in your home life or relationships, and it's about having that mind to body relationship, is what I've learned. And it's about having those healthy habits, so setting yourself boundaries as well, away from your workstation, and making sure you allow yourself the time to, you know, even if you jump on your mat for 10 minutes in the morning, like you say, it just sets you up for the day then. And I think, you know, a lot of people are surprised just how they feel afterwards. You know, it's not just a physical reaction, but it's a whole body kind of awareness. Yeah, so.
Yeah. No, that's really, that's spot on. I'm like remembering the times we had the office yoga, and we did it on Wednesdays, didn't we? And it was like it was so much fun for me, and it got sort of annoying because like I think some of my Wednesdays were really busy near the end of it, but it was so much fun just because I sometimes had such a busy Wednesday morning and I'm like, I don't feel like going to yoga anymore. I might just skip it for today. But then sometimes I'll just go get into my yoga gear, go into the place we did our yoga classes, and I would feel so good after literally just standing on the mat, seeing everyone else turn up. It just made me feel so great. And like you said, at the end of each session, even though I wasn't like super flexible or I wasn't doing the poses like perfectly, like, you know, the girls that you see on Instagram sometimes, I'm sure we could touch on that. I just still felt like quite at home. And I think the best thing about yoga is the fact that it's not just about movement, it's also about your breathing. And just, I think that's something, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but recently I've noticed that sometimes during the day when I'm working, I like hold my breath. I don't know if like you've seen that with other people, but I sometimes hold my breath for no reason. Sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? And then as soon as I'm like, okay, let me just like take a deep breath in, like, and suddenly I feel calmer. Suddenly my whole like working day is a lot better. I don't know why we keep that much tension, but I guess that's something that office workers do more of.
Yeah, probably, because I think when you're in the zone, I've done it as well when I'm at the laptop. You just kind of like, oh, I must hold my breath to get through this. You know, I just keep going. And it's like, and then you're like, no, this is not right. You know, I'm just breathing up into my chest and it's just building more tension, you know. And you touched upon it there, like just the breath is everything. I recently did a breath workshop, and it's so interesting, like the science behind it all. I mean, it was 3 hours long, so I won't be able to condense it all into this, but like it's just so interesting, like how a natural mechanism in your body, you know, something so simple that we do every day. We were born to breathe, yet if you think about it, like you say, I mean, who knows how to breathe effectively, you know, as adults, you know, but we don't, because we just don't even think about it. But you know, if I ask somebody, they probably wouldn't know, you know, how they might say, oh, you breathe into your chest. Well, no, you don't. You like actually need to breathe into your diaphragm and expand the breath and relax. And I think too many people are holding too tight, you know, into the core as well these days, because we're told to sort of like tense the core and hold and do all this stuff, and it's like, it's actually, things have moved on, you know, like science has moved on. So it's yeah, breath is everything. Like if you don't have a good breath practice, then you might as well give up the other stuff, because it's just so imperative to, you know, every time you exercise, you know, if you go out running, again, a lot of people who go running probably don't think about it, but and it even happens to me, because like I'm not a runner, so when I do go out, I do find it tough, because it's a different breathing. Obviously it's cardiovascular, and I'm like, oh, my heart rate's going up, and you know, there probably is a mild panic there. Like I'm going to run out of breath or something, you know. So I have to change the way I breathe. But you know, it's really interesting just how, like you say, when you have a panic attack, like if you just have that little breath technique with you that maybe you've learned from a yoga practice or something, you know, it could just be something really simple, like breathe into a count of 3, hold to a count of 3, breathe out, and literally just do that over and over. It becomes repetitive, and you know, that's why I love it, is because you learn all these techniques and you take them forward with you in life. It's not just while I'm on the mat, oh, I do that, I leave, oh. And yeah, some people you might forget what you've done because you just enjoyed it, but that's it, you leave it, move on. But you know, the idea is obviously that you're starting to develop these little tricks and tips you can take with you to help you in other situations in life.
I mean, I think that's why I really value my like breathing from yoga and also meditation. I think it's just taught me a lot about how I don't actually know how to breathe properly. I started running recently, and I noticed that I was doing the same thing that I sometimes do when I'm working and I'm focused, where I don't breathe properly. I like hold my breath and I'm like running super fast. I'm like, this isn't healthy, because then I feel like my lungs are about to explode. But yeah, it's one of those things, and I think yoga is a really good place to learn all of those sort of concepts. Not like we've already touched upon this, but like it's not just about how stable you are when you do a yoga pose. It's also about like breathing. It's about like tuning into yourself and everything. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. My next like sort of question is around the pandemic, and obviously the pandemic has been really tough on a lot of people, but it's actually quite nice to see that, hopefully, touch wood, we're on our way out now. But what has been like your go-to wellness activity during this time? Because I know it's been quite tough for a lot of people, and for some people they've just given up because like, what's the point, you know? So yeah, it'd be nice to and interesting to see what you've been up to.
So aside from teaching yoga, which, as much as that sounds fun to someone else, like that is my work and my job and my business. So that's not actually me time. So when I'm in the mode of teaching, as much as I enjoy that, that's not my downtime, if you see what I mean. It's like any job. You know? So I still have the, you know, cogs of the business I'm still trying to tick over and, you know, work at outside of that. So, and more than ever, like this past year, I've been on my laptop a lot. So yeah, so obviously I like to have my own yoga practice, but I don't always fit in like a full hour or anything, and you don't have to either. You know, sometimes it's literally like I move for 10 minutes in the morning and I do some meditation, like you say. I like to put on guided meditations, because even though I'm a yoga teacher, I wouldn't say that's my speciality. Like I'm much more a mover. I have a really busy mind, monkey mind, so I do need a little bit of guidance in that, I'll admit that. So I like to follow loads of different yoga people, but I also love listening to podcasts. So I really found that useful in lockdown, because just if I was busy doing any activity at home or out and about on a walk, I would stick, you know, my headphones in. I just love listening to so many. I really like Jay Shetty.
Oh yes, I do like him too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the guy that wrote How to Be a Monk. I read his book as well. So many good tips in there as well. And I really like this guy called Niall Breslin. He's like a mindfulness coach. He's really interesting, gets loads of good guests on as well. Louis Theroux and loads of different comedy ones. I just love a bit of everything really. And yeah, and music, like I'm big into music, so like anything that gets me moving. We used to have like kitchen discos in the like on a Saturday night, a family, just kind of like after dinner, it was just kind of random. We just break out and be like, go into the kitchen, put some tunes on, and then yeah, have a different theme night, and just yeah, good old kitchen boogie. My daughter likes that, so yeah. So just little fun things like that to kind of liven the mood, because obviously you can get stuck in a rut, like you say. It's easier for me in the sense that I sort of have a natural affinity to want to keep fit, and obviously I'm a yoga teacher, but that doesn't make it easy either. I still have to motivate myself. I have bad days like anyone, and I don't want to do work some days, and I don't want to teach some days, like to get in front of the camera every day, or every other day, whatever it is, like anyone, I don't always want to do that, but you do have to sort of move with the times as well. So yeah, and just getting out in nature, I think it's just been for a lot of people, I think it's been a bit of an eye-opener in just how lucky we are where we live and how much we have around us, to appreciate. I've got more into like my gratitude practice and journaling as well. I never really had the time before. Used to make excuses why I couldn't do it, whereas now I try to get up earlier, because my kids wake as well early. So if I don't get up earlier than them, then the day I'm just into the thing of being a mum. So I have a 5-minute journal, and it's just got a few like key little pointers in there, like 3 things I'm grateful for. And then you kind of revisit it in the evening, and you can write down anything that happened in the day, or anything you wished might have been different or something. But you don't have to have official journals. You can just literally have a notebook and just write things like little affirmations in, or just to sort of big yourself up, because I think that's what I've learned, is I never used to do that, but who else is going to do it? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to be your biggest cheerleader and just say like, oh, I am great, I am beautiful, I am that, things like that sounds silly to some people to say, but I just think sometimes no one's going to say it to you, especially if you live alone, so that helps, just like writing things down, or just letting the words pour. Sometimes if you've had a bad day, literally just to be like, oh, I had a really crap day, felt like this, but then I tried this, and then that got better, and just a little analyze your day a little bit there, or sort of self-reflect, and then you might come back to it the next day and learn something. So yeah, I like to journal. That's a good one as well.
It sounds like you've been like keeping up with your health and wellness habits during lockdown, and that's really good. And I think a lot of people listening to this will sort of gain some inspiration from what you've said there, especially around journaling. So I just wanted to quickly share, like I've been journaling on and off over the years, but I actually used to have a 5-minute journal. I think it sounds similar to the one I might have had before.
Yeah, it's called the 5-minute journal.
Oh, the 5-minute. I think I had that too. It's really, really good, because it like relieves the pressure of trying to write loads, because I think a lot of people see the journals and they're like, oh, I need to write like my whole life story in here, when you don't need to. But with that said, I've also been journaling in using my wellness journal by paper or something like that. I bought it recently, like a month ago, and I've just been logging how I've been feeling day in, day out. And sometimes when I feel like, because there's been a lot of changes in my life recently, I've changed jobs, and I've been finding it difficult in this 3rd lockdown to sometimes like motivate myself to take care of myself. So even though I'm really good at some habits like exercising for me that's my go-to thing that makes me feel good, but in other aspects sometimes I don't eat very well, sometimes I forget to eat and stuff like that. And writing it all down and journaling has helped me sort of identify what I need to do to make myself feel better that day. And some days I just feel a lot of things and I end up writing like pages and pages about how I'm feeling. But it's so good. It's such a good practice, especially over such a tough time for everybody. So yeah, definitely recommend journaling. Check out the 5 minute journal. That's probably the best one to get started with, because you don't have to write every day. You don't have to write for hours. You just have to write for 5 minutes in total, day and night. So yeah, totally.
And everyone has 5 minutes. So
yes, exactly. No excuses. So in terms of like your routine for like making sure that you feel as good as you feel for the day, what do you do? Like, so you do meditation, journaling, like what does your structure look like in a day?
So yeah, that's an interesting one. that can change daily depending on my mood, but I'm not a very or wasn't a very structured, I mean, I do like a plan, but again, I think this last year has shown me just how lazy I am at getting up in the mornings. I do like my sleep, but now the lighter mornings are coming. I've reflected on that and thought I do need to make the most of the early mornings. So now I'm getting much better at getting up like at least an hour and a half before the kids, and then I'll maybe do, like, depending how I feel, like I'll try and do a bit of meditation, but sometimes, like I say, a meditation where I'm just sat still doesn't really help me in the morning. I like to kind of get up and move my body a bit, because you've been asleep for 12 hours or 8 hours, whatever. So I will sometimes put on a meditation, or I'll just do my own moving meditation, as I like to call it. And it's not always planned. It's just how I feel my body wants to move in the morning. Have a good old, move about, shake about the body. And then I might come to a little like 5-10 minute meditation. And then sometimes I'll do some breath work, like I'll just do some breathing exercises, depending again on my state of mind. Like it might be something very calming, or it might be something to like build the energy up. And then I was going to say I go running, but I don't go running.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, like very occasional, I go for a run, but no, it's more like a slow jog or a walk. But yeah, then I generally then I drink lots of water as well.
That's important
in the morning. And then I'll do a bit of journaling, maybe, not always, just sometimes if I've got, I'll do a little bit of a journal, or kind of like a download of my thoughts, or something like that. And then basically in the day, it depends what days I'm teaching on, but because I have to conserve my energy for that. But I do try to do like a weight session once a week. And I want to do more of that, actually. But yeah, definitely once a week. And I do like kind of HIIT once to twice a week, but I teach a HIIT session as well, HIIT and yoga. And then I obviously do my yoga interspersed as well into that, which can be vinyasa flow, or it can be yin yoga, which is I really appreciate doing that in the evening when I've had a busy day, because it's like static stretches where you really, really hold, and it stretches the fascia of the muscles. And that's kind of like what I do. I'd say I do some sort of movement practice. It's going to be 6 days a week. I really only have one day off where I'm not doing anything, and even then I'm still moving. I'm still walking or taking the kids somewhere, or or hiking, but that's kind of how it looks.
What I gathered from that is that some weeks will change, and you just have to sort of be flexible with it. And I think where people fall down in that wellness trap is that they think they need to have this set out plan that they need to like hit every single week. And if they deviate from it at all, it's like game over. But there is like you said, you have your kids, and loads of different people have different responsibilities. So you need to factor that in, and just be flexible in terms of your like wellness routine. So thank you for sharing that. And I think my next question is around like how can people who are listening right now, how can they themselves prioritize health and wellness? And I think this is a question that it always comes up. It's like timeless, because people tend to just not know how to sort of motivate themselves, and sometimes they fall off the wagon. And could you just talk a bit about how can people create actionable steps right now to prioritize their mental health and well-being?
Yeah, so I think, I think you just said it then, is that you need to make baby steps to begin with. Like if you're coming from zero, depending on your personality type, because I know some of my friends are like, oh, I go all in or nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's okay. And I used to be like that. But, that might work for some people. But the tendency there is that you're only going to do that all thing for like a couple of months, and then you're going to give up again, So like you said, I think you really do have to sort of self-assess what you've got going on in your life. It might help to kind of map it out. This is what I kind of tell the corporate clients, because I'm trying to develop some kind of mindset coaching almost for them. So it's kind of like, looking at your daily schedule, but not just putting the wellness to the side, obviously making that just as important, and mapping out like, what motivates me, what makes me happy to begin with, what do I like to do, and then look at your working day or week, whatever, and it's having the right attitude around it. So don't look at it as like, oh, this is just a little thing I've got to fit in if I can. It's like, when will I fit it in, and what can I do to get there? Ask yourself, what does it mean to me to do this activity, and what will I feel afterwards? Ask yourself, oh, when I ran that time, yeah, it might have hurt the first time, but how did it make me feel after? Or did I feel a bit more energized for it? And think about the feelings in your body, and in your mind, and did it give me mental clarity, afterwards and stuff? And, just take that little bit of time to, it's not about the destination, like we say, it's about the process. So like you say, it's not going to happen overnight. It may hurt at first, depending what the exercise you're doing, but I think you've got to be very, regimented in a way, if you're that sort of person at scheduling it out, putting it in the schedule, because we all know what happens when we don't schedule things out. We leave the thing that we're most nervous about, or the big task, to the end. We're like, I'll do all these little bits, I'll distract myself with these and get those done, and then I'll just leave everything else for after, and then you don't end up doing that thing that you should be doing. So it's like just building those little healthy habits, and I'd say, like, getting better at your boundaries, with work as well, and saying to yourself, no, I am going to take my hour lunch break, and doing a little bit of something every day. So just little baby steps, and I'd say, like, like we said, everybody can do maybe like a breathing exercise, just like once a day, or do it in the evening when you go to bed, like when you lie down eventually, or sit down in the evening. There's no reason why you can't just turn the telly off, put a podcast on, or put a little breathing exercise on if you like to follow someone's voice, and literally just tune into your senses, just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just see how that feels. And then if you like that, you're going to think, okay, I'll try that again tomorrow. Because I think we waste a lot of time. I do it myself. It's sort of a habit. You put on the TV in the evening because you think that's going to relax you, and some days it does, but other days I can sit there and I'm like, you know what, I'm so tired, I'm just staring at another screen. Why am I doing this? I could actually be using this time for something else, and I think every day as well, like sort of being thankful for things that you do have, and don't focus on what you don't have. Look at how far you've come, even if it is small steps. Like you said, nutrition, really important, because that tends to just go by the wayside. So it's like I do that to myself, when if I'm on the go all day, I eat a lot of little things here and there. That's okay, because I'm used to that, but make sure it's a smoothie that you've prepared earlier on in the morning. Like I like to make overnight oats, because they're just so quick to grab out the fridge, and I'll even have it for my lunch. I just, anything that's planned, it's there ready to eat. Just try and be as healthy as you can, because obviously that's going to give you the right nutrition you need to exercise as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically just, you know, any bit of movement you can fit into your day, that you enjoy. You know, it's got to be something you enjoy. You know, you don't want to go full into, oh, I've got to get fit. You know, like you say, it's this attitude of, I'm going to blast it out in the gym. Come on, go. Like, you know, if that's your first time, you're not going to feel good, you know, afterwards, you know. So it's like, perhaps just start small. You know, you don't need to do a full hour class. You just go on YouTube. I mean, there's so much information out there, which can be confusing as well, knowing where to start. You know, even I've done that, because I'm like, where should I start with my weights? I think I asked you once, I was like, I'm going to get some kettlebells. I'm like, but Shona doesn't tell me where to start, you know, and I'm like, I'm pretty fit, but I'm not that fit, you know. So, but, you know, just ask questions and ask people, you know, and, you know, go on sites and find out. But, you know, I think you've got to set your non-negotiables, like I like to call them. So it's like, you know, and it's not being selfish. Because I used to feel like that, you know, being a mum or whatever responsibilities you have in your life, you do put others before yourself a lot. But I've just learned that if I kept on doing that, I've run myself into the ground before, because like mentally, I just go stir crazy. You know, if I didn't have any time to think about my own thoughts, you know, because a lot of mums do that, you know, it's kind of like they put their, you know, their families first, and like they say, you can't fill from an empty cup, you know. So it's like, how can you, you know, expect to be a nice person to your kids if you're constantly stressed and you're constantly on the go? So yeah, I think you need to set healthy boundaries, small chunks of time, like literally 10-20 minutes. I mean, when I teach yoga and HIIT, it's literally the main bulk of it is you know, 20-25 minutes long, the bit where you're working hard. And I mean, do that twice a week and you'll notice a difference, you know, already. I mean, I did. So it's kind of like that. It doesn't have to be such massive tasks, you know, to go from zero to all. And you know, and commit to it as well. You know, even if you write it down in your diary, you know, like, I'm going to go for a run here, I'm going to schedule out that time there for a call with someone, you know, if you want to catch up with a friend, like, just, you know. And I'm not saying it's easy, I don't always do this, but those are some, you know, some little things. Set timers. I've heard people setting timers on things or turning their phone obviously off while they're working. And yeah, I think just, you know, there are tons of apps out there that you could get, you know, to help you with all these things as well. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be reliant on those for too long, because they might help you at the start and they are really good, but also you don't want to see it as a chore as well, because I know I felt like that sometimes. I'm like, I've downloaded this app and now I've got to fit the Wim Hof breathing in as well, you know, and then it's just another thing to think of. So I think that they do have their place, but at the same time, you know, try and do it off your own back as well sometimes, you know, if you have some support and people to kind of help you along.
Yeah, no, I think everything you highlighted there is like, it's spot on. I think a lot of where people sort of tend to go wrong is they try and go full on, and so they commit to, for example, going to the gym, starting to lift weights, and then they just like destroy their muscles by lifting like 40 kilos you know, dumbbells. And that obviously, you just rushed yourself, and then you've ended up injuring yourself, and then now you associate like a bad memory to that exercise or to doing that activity, so you feel like less like you don't want to do it anymore. And so I think, like you said, it is really important just to take those baby steps. And personally, I also think that you have to find what works for you. So sometimes, like, I know some people who just love to run, and they get the runner's high and they feel really good, and it's really good for their well-being. But for me, I started running recently, and I've started to gain that same like runner's high, but I've also really sort of struggled before when I tried to run, because I just didn't enjoy it, whereas like weight training really helped me get into that right mindset, and it helped with my mental health and well-being, and also yoga. So it just really depends. And sometimes, like, I've been lifting for 5 years now, there's some days I'm like, I'm sick of this, there has to be another activity that I want to try out, because like it's all the same things, and I want to do something different. And that's why I think I started running recently. I think that's one of my main like motivators. And yeah, it just depends on the person. It just, you sort of need to find out and experiment what works for you, and take those baby steps. Okay, yeah, no, thank you so much, Emma, for all of that. I think you've given me, and I'm sure our listeners as well, on some of like the actionable things that they can do to improve their mental health and well-being, and maybe even take up yoga, whether that's in the workplace or at home. There's also all these like different ways that they can just get some more like movement and clarity in their lives. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. The final question is, where can people find you? And if there's a organization that's listening right now, and they want to get in touch, maybe implement yoga in their own workplace, where can they find you?
Okay, so they can find me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is at Emma's_yoga_tribe. Or you can email me. I'm in the process of developing a website, so but once that's all up and running, they'll be able to find me there. But if they want to email me, then we can just drop it in the comments below. And yeah, that's where you find me. And all right, so yeah, and for the corporate wellness, I'm in the process of developing programs, so they can be wellness and coaching sessions, as well as it's physical yoga. So which can be anything from you can do it in the chair yoga, and loads of stuff to do with mobility, breathing techniques. It's whatever the workplace really wants for their employees' wellness, really.
No, that sounds really good. That's really exciting. I'm excited to see where that takes you, Emma, because I know I've taken a few of your yoga classes in the workplace, and I can't recommend them enough. So yeah, no, thank you so much for being our guest today, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
She ain't never met a young and do it like me. She got a man, but she said she really like me. She doing things to excite me. She sending all her friends snaps on my new tracks.